The transit of transiting Saturn forming an exact conjunction with natal Mars represents the ultimate crystallization, structural discipline, and tactical containment of the physical drive, ambition, and vital execution capacity. Occurring only once every 29.5 years, this conjunction, 0°/circ, forces an unyielding, comprehensive structural audit of the entire martial function within the psyche. In the archetypal taxonomy of astrology, Mars is the raw engine of the ego. It rules your physical adrenaline, your competitive instinct, your capacity for assertion, your anger, and the kinetic energy you utilize to slice through obstacles and impose your will upon the material plane. Saturn, conversely, is the cold reality principle, the principle of administrative law, systemic friction, time, and absolute defensive architecture. When Saturn conjoins your Mars, it steps directly onto your accelerator, imposing an unyielding administrative brake. It is a cosmic trial that subjects your ambitions, anger management, and physical output to an intense pressure test. What is built on erratic impulses, impatient striving, or scattered reactions is ruthlessly blocked and fractured. What is engineered with patient, clinical logic, calculated strategy, and ironclad endurance is permanently upgraded into a form of hyper-resilient, weaponized execution. To fully grasp the deep, psychological mechanics of this transit, one must analyze how it fundamentally rewrites your cognitive architecture and alters your relationship with friction, pacing, and power. Under standard conditions, Mars operates on speed and direct confrontation, which can frequently lead to a massive waste of energy on low-value battles, superficial arguments, or impulsive reactions to immediate threats. When transiting Saturn conjoins this point, however, your system undergoes a profound cooling process. The reactive internal static that usually drives an individual to force outcomes, panic under delays, or fight unnecessary wars is completely silenced. In its place, Saturn installs an extraordinary, cold clarity and an unyielding capacity for strategic detachment. You develop an acute, visceral awareness that raw force is an inefficient mechanism for long-term survival. The illusion that you can endlessly scatter your energy or react to every external provocation is permanently shattered. This realization does not trigger paralysis, instead, it installs an unshakable, mechanical focus. You stop fighting like a foot soldier and begin calculating like a military strategist, viewing every obstacle not as an emotional insult, but as a structural variable to be calmly bypassed or methodically dismantled. During this intensive period, your analytical faculties and resource management systems operate with an unprecedented level of systemic efficiency and structural logic. If your natural cognitive default is to analyze data to uncover the underlying order and hidden machinery of the world, this conjunction upgrades your capacity for execution into an operational scalpel. Your mind automatically filters out collective panic, superficial competitive trends, and external noise, categorizing them instantly as environmental friction that has no authority over your personal perimeter. You find yourself possessing a profound capacity for sustained, clinical introspection. You trace your historical patterns of ambition, anger, and professional investments straight back to their developmental roots, such as early childhood dynamics, paternal or maternal expectations, and inherited survival webs. You review this data with absolute emotional sobriety, without seeking external pity. You audit your past actions with the detached precision of a forensic scientist, separating your genuine responsibilities from the psychological burdens projected onto you by relatives, ex-partners, or competitors. You choose to pull your vital energies out of volatile, high-maintenance, or speculative conflicts, reinvesting them solely into heavy-duty structures and long-range skills that offer a mathematically bulletproof return on investment. Psychologically, Saturn conjunct Mars marks the ultimate fortification of your private citadel and the mastery of the silent, absolute boundary. Mars rules how you defend yourself, and when Saturn conjoins this point, your preference for strict privacy and your intense disdain for uninvited external curiosity are elevated into your primary defensive strategy. You realize that displaying your anger, engaging in loud debates, or explaining your trajectory to the uninitiated is an egregious vulnerability. It hands actionable data to an unpredictable environment. You master the sophisticated art of the silent, elegant boundary. When external social noise, collective hysteria, or interpersonal hostility attempts to breach your perimeter, your system refuses to register an emotional response. You look at the disruption through a lens of absolute stoicism, categorizing it instantly as not my architecture. You do not debate, you do not justify, and you do not explain your position, you simply withdraw your attention, letting the collective storm rage outside while you remain entirely unaffected. Your privacy ceases to be a defensive shield against an invasive world and becomes an active, heavily fortified sanctuary where you hold total administrative control over your power. Furthermore, because Mars rules your physical output, immediate action, and the cutting edge of your life trajectory, this transit serves as the definitive, master execution window for an engineered life shift, total career restructure, or permanent domestic exit. If you have spent years harboring a persistent, deep-seated urge to remove yourself from a stagnant environment, to move far away from your current geographic location, or to completely rewrite your living and professional arrangements to secure absolute peace, this conjunction gives you the logistical muscle, calculated patience, and cold detachment to pull the trigger. You approach your exit strategy with the calculating mind of a chess grandmaster playing for permanent stakes in absolute isolation. Every single financial layer, real estate data point, legal safeguard, and resource insulation plan is calculated and verified down to the absolute millimeter. You feel zero compulsion to announce your trajectory, seek external approval, or make public proclamations about your progress. You move your pieces in total isolation. By the time the outside world even realizes you have shifted your position, your new kingdom is already completely built, heavily fortified, and structurally immune to external volatility. Ultimately, the transit of transiting Saturn conjunct your natal Mars is a quiet, monumental masterclass in the absolute consolidation of personal sovereignty, material mastery, and self-contained authority. It strips away all superficial impulsiveness, naive expectations, and reliance on external validation, anchoring your self-esteem entirely within the reality of your own concrete competence, self-reliance, and physical accomplishments. You stop looking to societal networks, peer groups, or parental archetypes to validate your strength or guarantee your trajectory. You become the ultimate, protective internal authority over your own power. You naturally migrate away from high-maintenance, speculative, or volatile ventures, focusing instead on building deep-rooted, structural security that can withstand any external macroeconomic or social turbulence. You become perfectly content moving in absolute silence, optimizing your energy reserves, and mastering your craft in quiet isolation. When this conjunction concludes and Mars emerges from Saturn's forge, the radical transformations you have implemented and the boundaries you have drawn will not feel like a passing phase. They will have become the permanent, concrete, and unshakable bedrock of your absolute personal freedom. To fully map the profound, tectonic structural alignment that occurs during the transiting Saturn conjunct natal Mars cycle, we must analyze the precise neurological, somatic, and behavioral crystallization that takes place within the deepest bedrock of your drive architecture and execution circuitry. In the architecture of the psyche, Mars operates as your primary internal ignition system. It dictates your neural fight or flight pathways, what your body registers as a threat or an objective, how you deploy your kinetic energy, and the exact physical muscle you utilize to conquer obstacles on the material plane. When transiting Saturn conjoins this highly volatile, urgent point, it acts as a massive gravity well, compressing your martial impulses and subjecting your entire ambitious, reactive, and competitive framework to an intense pressure test to eliminate all psychological rot, fragile assumptions, and inherited conditioning. The sympathetic nervous system shifts away from the fluid, scattered expenditures of adrenaline and settles into a dense, hyper-resilient state of somatic grounding. The internal static that typically causes an individual to react to external provocation, tolerate draining professional friction, or succumb to societal gaslighting is completely silenced. You gain the rare, unyielding capacity to look at your physical energy reserves, strategic targets, and logistical liabilities with the absolute, detached composure of a sovereign ruler auditing an empire's structural defects. The mathematics of reality testing and tactical deconstruction. During this conjunction, the universe strips away your ability to rely on raw momentum, superficial passion, or speculative competitive outcomes, replacing them with a strict system of mathematical accountability. If your cognitive style is inherently analytical, this transit supercharges your intellect, transforming your ability to diagnose systemic inefficiencies within your execution strategy into an operational scalpel. You stop looking at what could be achieved through sheer force and begin working exclusively with what is logistically viable. This mental and behavioral shift dramatically alters your life workflow. The audit of ambitional investments. You review your history of career pursuits, interpersonal conflicts, and physical endeavors with total emotional sobriety. You trace every recurring frustration, wasted resource, and toxic competitive loop straight back to the precise moment you compromised your own strategic pacing to appease a relative network, an employer, or a social expectation. You don't analyze these memories to grieve, you analyze them to balance the ledger, ensuring you never repeat those behavioral debts. The pruning of execution leaks. You view your vital physical presence and attention as highly finite, irreplaceable assets. If a professional project, a superficial argument, or an interpersonal connection requires a high expenditure of your energy for a volatile, low-value return, it is systematically and permanently cut from your daily schedule. You become entirely immune to the emotional blackmail or societal guilt traditionally used to manipulate your labor. The mastery of strategic systems, your capacity to process dense, abstract, or highly intimidating data systems, whether that involves intricate corporate logistics, legal insulation plans, global economic realities, or the deep, mathematical mechanics of advanced esoteric systems like astrology, reaches its absolute peak. You don't just study these systems for amusement, you master them to extract practical, scannable strategies that guarantee your long-term insulation from collective turbulence. Fortifying the perimeter and the strategy of absolute self-containment. Saturn governs the ultimate architecture of defense, the literal walls that separate your sovereign reality from the erratic, invasive noise of the collective. When transiting Saturn conjoins your Mars, your preference for strict privacy and your intense disdain for uninvited external curiosity are elevated into your primary defense strategy. You realize that a loud display of force or an aggressive debate is a symptom of weakness. True power lies in absolute, silent withdrawal. During this period, you master the art of the fortress lifestyle. Surgical ghosting. You develop a terrifyingly efficient, clinical capacity to seamlessly drop out of low-value social networks, draining familial webs, or toxic professional alignments. You do not issue warnings, you do not seek closure, and you do not explain your trajectory to the uninitiated. You simply fade behind an impenetrable wall of silence, leaving zero energetic hooks behind. The cloak of invisibility. You find an immense, stabilizing comfort in working completely behind the scenes. You recognize that information is a vital currency that must be hoarded, and by keeping your physical relocations, financial assets, and operational routines hidden from the public gaze, you protect the structural integrity of your life from external interference. The autonomy of self-worth. Your self-esteem anchors itself completely within the undeniable reality of your own competence, self-reliance, and physical accomplishments. Because you no longer look to societal narratives, romantic partnerships, or external authority figures to validate your strength or safety, the opinions and shifting expectations of the outside world lose all power to influence your internal state. Executing the permanent, structural exit. Because Saturn conjoining Mars marks the definitive death of an obsolete operational chapter and the birth of total personal sovereignty, this transit serves as the ultimate, flawless execution window for a total life relocation or domestic migration. If you have spent years harboring a persistent, deep-seated urge to remove yourself from a stagnant environment, to move far away from your current geographic location, or to completely restructure your living situation to secure maximum peace, this conjunction gives you the logistical muscle and cold detachment to pull the trigger. You approach your exit strategy with the calculating mind of a chess grandmaster playing a high-stakes game in absolute isolation. Every financial safety net, legal shield, asset insulation plan, and geographic variable is calculated, verified, and secured down to the absolute millimeter. You feel zero compulsion to announce your trajectory or make public proclamations about your progress. You move your pieces entirely behind a wall of strict privacy. By the time the outside world even realizes you have shifted your position, your new kingdom is already completely built, heavily fortified, and structurally immune to external volatility. When this transit concludes, the unshakable foundation of personal sovereignty you have poured will remain as a permanent, concrete monument to your absolute personal freedom. Subscribe, like, and share.